Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'd like to share my top tips on shooting in the midday sun. So as you guys know, I love using natural light. I love using direct sunlight on the model's face, but you do have to be very smart about how you go about it, because you can end up with very contrasty images with loads of shadows underneath the eyes and so on. So there's a few things that you can do to avoid that. One of those things is not to shoot at noon, around the kind of midday time, because the light is the harshest then. It's much better to shoot either very early in the morning or late in the afternoon, but sometimes so it happens that you can't really avoid the sunlight and you do have to work through those hours and kind of make it work somehow. So here are my top tips on how to work in midday sun. As I mentioned, I like to avoid shooting at midday at all costs. I don't think it's a very nice light to deal with. It's usually very harsh, very contrasty, very hard to manage, and I just find it very, very tricky and frustrating to kind of make it work properly and don't have many kind of harsh shadows and so on. So first tip I have is to work with the light as much as possible. In my particular case, I noticed that there was lots of shadows in the area, that there was loads of trees and so on, so I tried to kind of use that to my advantage, and I took photos with the shadows all over the model's face and body. This way you distract the viewer from the heavy shadows that are created on the model's face, and you just create something a bit more visually interesting and maybe a bit softer than just putting the model in the direct sunlight. Once the sun reaches a certain height, it's very hard for models to open their eyes because it's very, very bright, and their eyes can water and so on. So I usually love to go for this kind of dreamy look where the model has her eyes closed. Another good way is to get the model to close her eyes and then count, and 1, 2, 3, open the eyes. This way she doesn't have to just stare at the sun, and she can just open the eyes for a few seconds for you to get the shot and then close them back again so she doesn't get too blinded by the sun. So when working with midday sun, always keep in mind that your models should chin up quite a bit. Usually the higher the sun is, the more she has to chin up. So as you see here, if she chins down, she gets those really, really long shadows, but the more she chins up, the kind of shadows disappear. I find when it comes to midday shots, it always looks better when you're shooting from above the model, because you're kind of in the same position as the light, so it's almost like a beauty shoot with a beauty dish, if you think about it this way. So it's always a good idea to maybe get the model to do some lying down shots, or maybe even sitting down or something, somewhere where you can be standing above her and not maybe kind of below or at her level, because the sun is just going to create more shadows and so on. Anytime it gets closer to noon, I always find I look for more shaded areas, so like a fully shaded, maybe under the roof or under a tree or something that will give you a bit more coverage than just having spots of shadows here and there, because this way you can keep the light very nice still, but it's not going to be too dark and it's not going to be too bright, so it's going to help you with your exposure a lot. In my case, I don't have any reflectors because I never really use one, but if you do use one and it's quite big, you can always put it over the model. So with reflectors, they usually come with a few different colors. You usually have the silver and the gold, and then you have the white in the middle. So if you just use the white and you put it over the model, it's going to diffuse the light really, really nicely and create a much softer light on the model's face. So instead of using it to reflect the light, use it to diffuse the light, and I find this way it's going to be much less severe, it's going to be much more natural, because I see that a lot where people reflect the light from underneath the model and it just looks really harsh, and it casts those really, really bad shadows on her face and so on. So I personally prefer to use reflectors this way if I have to use them at all. So if everything fails, if there is no shadow anywhere, if you don't have a reflector, you have nothing to hide the model under, I would just shoot against the sun. So you put the model's back against the sun, and this way you expose for her face. The backdrop might get a bit overexposed again, but you will save details in her face, and you will get a much nicer look than if you were shooting with the sun. Okay guys, before I go, I'd like to give a big shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. They are an awesome all-in-one platform to build your website on. They are super easy to use. Their customer service is top-notch, so you're never going to get stuck with anything. They offer loads of beautiful templates that can be personalized to make your website just the way you want it. It's super affordable and it's just a really awesome platform to build your website on. So if you want to check it out, make sure to type in my link. It's squarespace.com/Anita and you'll get 10% discount at the checkout. So make sure to check them out and I'm sure you're not going to be disappointed. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about the tips. Let me know if you have any other tips that you find very useful when shooting in midday sun. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.